Welcome to this edition of the $1 Million Mastermind Podcast. This is where we pick the brains of high achievers from all walks of life and get their hard-earned, real-world insights on winning. I'm your host, Larry Weidel. You have overlying principles, core values or, whatever you want to call it, but you have things that you believe in that are going to be guiding lights for you. But then you say you have processes. It's one of the things I try and get people to realize. You want to build this, these things are important to you into your system. So the process will get the important things done, like 30, 60, 90 days. This is, if you're here on the 60 day, you're going to go through this, and that's going to trigger certain things. I don't have to remember it. The manager doesn't have, if it's a newer manager, if he's inexperienced or experienced, it doesn't matter. He doesn't have to remember what's on that, the 60-day checklist or whatever. It's built into the process. It automatically happens. And so, how much time have you spent on the process? You're saying you copied a lot of those things, but you're probably constantly adapting those too, as you grow.
Yeah, we're always checking in with those at our quarterly business review meetings and making sure that they're right. We probably don't change them much. I mean, every couple of years we make a slight change to them. The one I forgot is, and I'm embarrassed by this, is teach guys first. So that is, putting our customer first. Is what that's all about. But we talk about them every day. We've probably made over the last 7 or 8 years a few changes to them.
I've got two different questions I want to ask. The first one is, what has been the hardest adjustment for you personally to go through in these different roles? And at what stage, when did you have to go through a personal tough adjustment? And how did you come to that realization? Did someone say something to you? Did a situation happen? But because the thing is, companies are not going to be better if the leaders are not better. And the companies are not going to improve the leaders not improving. And your company will not have those values if you don't have those values. You know what I'm saying? So where did you, none of us come fully formed. Most of the time you become, have success because you're willing to adapt and willing to change and humble yourself and say, okay, I got to get better at this. When I put that in front of you, what comes in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, most entrepreneurs at some point kind of get their back up against the wall, and you're either going left or you're going right. You can't continue to go straight down the path that you're going. And so I just got to the point where with Purchase Point, I was 8, 9 years in. I should have made dramatic changes to that business early on. Seeing when to quit is a tough thing for a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And I've, so I think I got to a certain point with that business and financially where I was at with my personal life and my family, that I had to sell my house. I was financially against the wall, and I had taken, not only had I burned through most of my cash, but I'd also borrowed some money, and I was at the point where my only move was to sell my house. So that was really the breaking point, selling the house, which personally I was okay with, but I don't think the kids and my wife really understood it that much. They weren't too happy with it. They were like, we don't really understand why this is happening. I'm like, I need some money. So I think, when you get to those level of life changes and that type of pressure, I think that's when you really realize, those are some defining moments. And they make you hungry and humble, and also, more passionate about succeeding. You just don't want to get yourself into a situation you're like that.
Well, that's one reason why I want to talk to people like you on this podcast, because skin in the game. people can be an interviewer. I've interviewed all kind of successful people, and I'm a professor and I've studied this for 30 years, successful people. And I can tell you what they did. No, you can't, because you, you have no way of, it's like someone who feeds the gorillas for 30 years and you say, I understand gorillas. Yeah, well, get in the cage with them and see if you understand,
Come out and tell me how that worked out.
Yeah. And so the thing is that until you got skin in the game, you can't really speak to these things, or when you say the words, they don't communicate like somebody who's been there. But now when you went through that thing, how did that turn out? What was the progression from that?
Yeah, I mean,
usually they're not a fast turnaround. Usually you're like,
this really goes back again to this kind of Mark Cuban thing, and something that I've already said to you is just like, I had and Arnold Schwarzenegger says he's against this. Don't ever have a plan B. That's his strategy, right? You read Total Recall, I think, or seen some of his, I read the book a long time ago. He said, don't have a plan. There's no such thing as a plan B. I had a plan B. And I still have a plan B for today, even though, I've reached, a great, I've accomplished a lot of my goals with the company that I have right now. And you never know what tomorrow brings, but I'm in pretty good shape with this company. But I've always had a plan B, and, I pivoted pretty quickly. I said, this just isn't going to work. I've got to, somewhat continue what I'm doing right now and kind of see it to completion. And at the same time, try to get something else going and see what else I can do. And, so I constantly, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, because, you really don't ever want to keep your eye off the prize of what you're doing. But I always have something in the back of my mind. If this doesn't work out, I'm going to pivot and do this.
Right.
And that's that goes to your point about looking down ahead of down the road to see what's going on.
Yeah. And my point I have a plan B, C, D, E, F, G. And
yeah.
And exactly. Same thing with Arnold, by the way, with all respect, Arnold, movies, governor, I think you've got other plans, backup plans, Arnold, if we're being honest about things. But anyway, the thing about you now, let's hear about this story of you take this thing and you move into, you had a lifetime of being out there in the front lines, meeting people, learning, picking up things. And all of that, would have been useless if you hadn't had, or had been limited use to you, had you not had the guts and the desire to go out and start this new adventure. And you probably where people tell you you're not the brightest thing to do. I'm just guessing.
Right, of course.
Probably not everybody was saying, wow, what a smart guy you are.
Yeah. I mean,
that just sounds great.
And there's, there's just this, there's luck in everything. There's putting yourself in the right position at the right time.
Right.
But working really hard, seeing a shot, trying to take it, and then trying to identify whether or not you've got something or not, and you can continue to build on it, or whether or not it's a dog and it's time to move on.
Right.
So early on, we started this business, we launched it, and I couldn't get anybody to buy the product. So, and you said this, you're very wise, Larry. I mean, we didn't have a voice in the market, aka we didn't have sales. We didn't have a way to attract customers to our product. We had good product and a good idea, but we didn't have any real voice in the market. And that's why we failed that and one or two other little things. We failed early on in our version 1 of Tiege Hanley, the skincare company that I have now. And we pivoted. We reached out to somebody that had a very strong voice. He was a YouTuber, and he was on the ascent in popularity. And we were able to bring him in as a customer. And he had millions and millions of followers. And we were able to start talking about why it's important for a guy to take care of himself and to have healthy skincare routines, right? You have many healthy routines. You should have many healthy routines in your life. You should have a healthy skincare routine. Get up, brush your teeth, wash your face, put a moisturizer on. You're ready to kick ass.
Yeah.
And so that we gained a voice early on, and that really started the trajectory that we've been on for the last 7-8 years.
And so talk about how that developed, how the sales grew and you went to where now, I mean, you've won awards,
Yep.
which, how many products are out there, and then you win the award for the top cleanser product of the year. And, how do you talk about this? Talk about the journey of this thing. It's nice to hear about success, by the way, because there comes a time when things actually work and you have to fight your way through it on a daily basis. But you look back and you said, this is a pretty good success story.
Yeah, but it's never easy. Even when it's good, it's never easy. We went right away, like right away, we went from 0 to, in a few months, to, 800,000-900,000 in sales. And then, right away, like 3 million, 5 million, 7 million, 10 million. We just started really cranking early on. But there was a lot of problems underneath of how we were developing our business. I'm the firm believer in developing super strong fundamentals within your business. So having core competencies in the most important things in your business, and marketing and product innovation and, channel diversification, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I really early on started pouring effort and time and energy into those channels. At the same time, we were fishing from a very big pond of my partner, who I brought in, who has a YouTube channel. His name is Aaron Marino. He's a brilliant man, very successful, lives in Atlanta, very successful, male grooming influencer and consultant, and successful businessman. But he gave us a voice, but eventually his voice, outgrowing him is not the right terminology, but we needed to become bigger than just him, than just my customer partner's voice. And so while we grew really strongly and had very good early years, we got to a point where we kind of started looking around and saying, okay, now what do we do? Now, how do we go from this level to this level and this level? And it was really challenging, to continue to grow the business as Aaron became, less involved in the business over time.
What were those challenges? Why was it a challenge?
Well, same thing, right? How do you reach broader and broader and broader audiences? Right. And so again, just equating it to sales, we were really had a great opportunity to speak to all the guys that knew Aaron through his content.
Right.
But after that, how does the average Joe that's walking down the street learn about our company?
Right.
So really being good at digital marketing, and creating content marketing, and creating marketing that would be in front of where our guys, and our guys are from 18 to 70, where they would be consuming content, which is, on YouTube and social channels and et cetera, et cetera. So
now, why is not the answer to that simply getting in a marketing company that are big experts and they come in and they give you the strategy and put it together for you? Why?
They don't know jack shit. They don't know anything. If you don't have an idea of what you're doing, you can't hire someone who's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's just, you have to have some core competency in anything that you're hiring. I'm not against, I have a meeting I have to go to, we have a big partner here, agency partner that we work with, but, you have to have a really good understanding of what it is that you're hiring and what you're paying for. Otherwise, you have no idea whether or not you're getting any value out of it.
Yeah.
Right. So
I kind of got the idea when you were talking about early on in the interview, where you were talking about these bigger companies were like, they were strong on this and they were this. And I got the idea from that was like, they knew they had to do it themselves. There was no outside consultant they could bring, to train the people or do this, that. They had to do it themselves. And so they must have learned that lesson years ago as on their way to becoming these giant.
Absolutely. And in all honesty, we got burned a lot. We brought in people, that we thought could help our business grow. And, they weren't any more capable than we were.
Yeah.
So we really had to really get gritty and really try to understand.
So how did you find your way out of it? Because you're a salesperson.
Yeah.
You've had lots of experience doing these things. You're a problem solver.
Yep.
And I'm sure there are models out there like the Harry's things. And, there people are sending boxes out on this, that, and the other to the house, food prep and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's ideas out there that other people have done in terms of doing that. But how did you break through?
There's only one way, and it's a one-word answer: talent. Getting the right talent on board. And that, by the way, is the most difficult thing.
Yeah.
Right. That is a very, especially if you're a smaller company, right? If you're Google, there's no talent you can't attract. If you're Unilever, and I'm going to tell you that you're going to work in Manhattan and then be on photo shoots and shoot the sexiest models and have endless budgets and fly off to London. There's no talent that you couldn't attract. But when you're a certain size company, especially when you're young and you're a startup, it's brutal to try to attract great talent. But when you get the right talent on your team, things just start clicking.
Now, how do you go looking for that talent? Because you've done a lot of recruiting around the world. You recruited in foreign countries, things like that. So how do you go looking for that kind of talent?
Constantly looking, 24/7 looking for talent. When someone comes into a room, I'm thinking, do I want to hire this person? I have hired people in airports. I've hired people in Starbucks that I've met at Starbucks, that I've met at the airport. I'll meet a friend at a party and find out that his spouse is, an expert at something. And, it's a constant, I'm constantly on the hunt.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Thanks for listening to the $1 Million Mastermind. If you felt there were any valuable takeaways from this episode, please take a minute and leave us a 5-star review. Your feedback is important and really helps us get the word out to a wider audience. Remember, we have a valuable webinar that is absolutely free. Register for it right now at whitealumwinning.com. Thanks for listening.